welcome to another episode of This Week in Events with Paul Richardson and Jill Hawkins.
Hello.
How you doing, guys?
Good morning.
Good, thank you.
A bright morning too, for a change.
Yes, it's nice and sunny out there, and it's been a busy week. How's everyone else's week been?
It's seen I was going to say we were basking in the joy of it being the end of award entries, and then all of a sudden, Access All Areas and Festival Insights launched their award entries yesterday, and it's case of, oh god, here we go again. We're on the merry-go-round. Award entry time.
It never stops.
Does it ever end? Oh dear. Yeah.
And then we'll have the ESSA Awards later this year. When do they open? That's
coming up soon, and the Avcom Awards have been extended to 5th of September, so there's lots of people who may want to get late entries in. That's still open. So yeah, it's becoming a never-ending award cycle, but we covered this last week, so I'm not going to beef about that anymore.
If it's going to be like that, then we should have our own award, a weekly award, Star of the Week. In fact, I'm going to do that. We're going to put something out so people can suggest Star of the Week, so we can have our own forever rolling on awards submissions.
Could it be something really bad or something really good?
Oh no, Star of the Week.
So it'd be something really good.
It has to be something really good. I think.
Okay.
I think the last few weeks have seen too much controversial things going on.
Oh, I can't even say it. Controversy. That's American, isn't it? That's good. Gets people talking.
So yes, it does. Anyway, it's Friday, the 8th of August. It's very early in the morning, and we're going to start with you, Jill. So what's got your attention?
I thought this was really interesting. It was an article written by Adam in CNIT World, and it's based on a survey that reveals 95% of planners see costs as the top challenge. Now, we all know that the world is in economic, we're not in a recession, but we're in a downturn, aren't we? You know, food prices are going up, prices of everything are going up. Budgets seem, according to this research, budgets are coming down. And so there seems to be a bit of a discrepancy there with what planners want to achieve with their budget, and then what suppliers and venues can actually deliver according to that budget. And my worry is that everyone wants an amazing event, everyone wants the wow factor in their event, but if budget's being cut, how is that going to, is it the suppliers and venues that are going to get asked to work at cost or work at a reduced price? Are they going to get squeezed?
Is it the base cost that's the problem?
Yeah.
Right. For example, you're going to ask for a main socket for your stand. Now, is the cost of electricity going up, and therefore you have to pass that on, or is it a case that the cost is the same, but what's needed is more income, so you increase your margin?
I think that suppliers are having, you think of a venue and you think food prices have gone up massively, hugely. You know, we all go into the supermarket now, and a shop that would have cost, say, 60 quid now costs nearer to 100. You know, prices have gone up a lot on a lot of products. So, of course, that means that the food being served at a conference has gone up as well. And then you think of rising costs in things like national insurance costs are going to go up. Or have they gone up already? I'm not sure. But certainly staff costs have gone up, electricity costs have gone up. I don't think anyone's being greedy here. I don't think suppliers are putting their costs up to be greedy at all. I think that they're actually just trying to make a living and trying to be fair.
One of the things I've noticed this last week or so is people now revealing just how much it costs for things like a main socket. When in London, it might cost you 1,000 odd for a single 6 kilowatt socket, but a nice big venue in the north, that might actually just be 300. So, as I say, is it a case of base costs are going up, which obviously is in food and other related things, but is it also a case that companies are thinking we have to increase our margins, otherwise we may not see the end of the year?
No, I don't know if it's increasing in margins, because it's almost like that self-fulfilling prophecy then, isn't it? If you put your prices up too high, then you don't get any work. So I think most suppliers out there are fair. I think we have seen some comments in the industry over the last week talking about how perhaps suppliers aren't being fair. I do think that's the minority. I think the majority of suppliers are just trying to do a good job, have repeat custom, and do a good job for a fair wage and pay their staff accordingly. I wonder how many suppliers actually pay their staff the national living wage. Not the official, the upper one, the one that you adopt, the one that you sign up to. I've got a couple of clients who do actually sign up to that. So,
Paul, from your side of things, how do you see it?
In terms of, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because people will be putting their prices up for survival mechanisms, because there's a whole supply chain involved in this. So if let's take a particular example. If you're looking at something really simple, like the security towers and fire towers that you put on at a festival, made out of scaff and scaff board. Scaff and scaff board has been hard to come by, therefore supply has been restricted, therefore people getting hold of scaff to create towers has become more limited. Certain people are stockpiled, so they're then renting it out. Then you've got the guys who then have to rent it from them and install it, and then the venue has to take. So there's this knock-on effect all the way through the supply chain. So if there's 6 or 8 or 10 or however many people in the supply chain, and at the beginning somebody puts 2% on, well, that's 2%. Then the next person's got a 2% uplift. The next person's got a 2% uplift, and the pain's been felt at the sharp end. But without that, how do these other people manage their operating costs? Because it becomes really tricky. And as an employer, we feel this, because our members of staff want to be able to have a reasonable quality of life. They want to be able to eat food. They want to be able to have to rent, and all of their costs, their personal and domestic costs, are going up. So that's happening. Our business costs are going up. So fortunately, our landlords in this barn complex were in by the teas and coffees. But even if we have to buy our own teas and coffees, price of that's gone up only a few p, but it's more. Everything incrementally is going up. So our costs are increased. So we then have to look at, can we recover this cost from our clients to keep ourselves going to the standard we want to? And we are not a highly profitable business. We're fairly, we make a living and that's about it. How do we pass that on? Can we pass that on? Because a lot of them are looking to try and reduce their costs so that they can stay competitive in a marketplace. So it's quite a turbulent market at the moment. It's quite hard to gauge where everybody sits, and people used to be able to turn around and say, oh yeah, there's the annual price rise coming through, and it's 2% this year, or it's 5% next year, and that conversation is not happening in a lot of places because people are having to try and absorb it by reducing internal costs. It's going to be, I think this is still a roll on from the pandemic. I still don't think we finished feeling the effects of that. We've had these little highs and lows and highs and lows and highs and lows, and I think we're just bottoming out of another one of these lows. Hopefully it'll level out at some point, but again, global economic factors weigh into this as well as local.
Well, we hear a lot about from hospitality about how hotels are suffering. Venues are becoming more vocal. We're hearing more and more from venues that are now saying that we have to close. We just can't keep going, especially outside of London. But are we hearing enough from services like exhibit stand builders? Are we hearing enough from them that the tough times that they're going through?
I don't know. I mean, we talk about stand builders, but you talk about people who it's anywhere in the supply chain. Look at outdoor events, look at conference suppliers, right across the board. Anything live events. The experiential guys, do they have the same things? Are there where they're holding events? Does that the prices going up? Are there temporary structures guys? Are they putting prices up where it's to get a feel for how the events industry is working? It's going to be difficult. It's going to have to go right across the entire supply community, across multiple, I'll say, verticals. We've kind of squeezed people into these verticals that may have been appropriate 10 or 15 years ago, but I think more people are now crossing those industry divides. So outdoors suppliers supply indoor, and indoor supply outdoor, and conference supply indoors. And I think there's a big blurring of boundaries, which may not have happened 15, 20 years ago.
Absolutely. And I think that could be because they're trying to chase money, they're trying to chase all year round availability. Actually, I'll bring that up. Most of the companies in this industry have high periods in the spring, the summer, or the autumn. You know, if you're supplying a festivals very much the summer season. If you're supplying conferences, it tends to be spring and autumn, doesn't it? So they have very down times in December and January. We don't have many, unless it's a Christmas event, we don't have many conferences in that time. Now, I think that perhaps suppliers are charging perhaps more than they perhaps need to in the high months to actually be able to balance out the low months, because they can't just suddenly get rid of staff. They don't want to get rid of staff in those low times. They need to actually average things out over the year. If we actually saw more events happen in those low times, could that be a cost-effective way of holding a conference? You know, I know certainly, you know, there are some venues out there that they've worked out that most corporates don't want to have an event on a Friday, but actually we'll charge you cheaper on a Friday if you want to have your event, because actually it's an open day for us.
Going back, and as I say, the crossover into different market sectors has kind of blurred a lot of this. But if you look at the exhibitions industry, and we first started getting involved 3 decades ago, you had an absolute cycle where come mid-June, the industry stopped, and everybody disappeared on holiday for 6 weeks, because they knew when they landed back in September, it was mayhem from September till the first week in December. And then it stopped again until the first week in January, when the madness started all over again. So you actually had proper sinusoidal activity levels and peaks and troughs, whereas now it's much more flattened out, and also because people are working in different sectors. So the guys have looked and said, right, maybe we because of recessions and other things, we need to find other markets to work in. So where are the downtimes? Downtime, summer. Well, what happens in summer? Festivals, outdoor, all experientials. Those happen. Right, how do we tap into that? So a lot of these companies have now blended across. I'm going back to, if you look at the days of Melville, and we used to work for Melville and GES way back in the day when the transition happened between the two. Melville were on that original cycle. GES came in and went, well, hang on a minute, why aren't we competing for the overlay for the Olympics, UK Olympics? And they went for that, and that filled the big summer hole with their team fully occupied all throughout that summer. I don't know how their team felt about that, because they were probably looking forward to 6 week, long summer vacation. But that's the corporates have had a look and said, how do we find our space? How do we fill the gaps in? How do we make the businesses, as businesses have become more on a business footing, where they're looking at overall profitability across a 12-month period, rather than as they were industry orientated and cyclic. Sorry, that a bit of a ramble, but there you go.
No, I think that's covered. That's
Cool.
good. Yeah.
Yep, I'm happy with that. I suppose the article, just going back to the article to finish off, it talks about it's research with planners, and it's research that says that planners are reducing their budgets, and then that's then impacting on suppliers and on venues, because there isn't as much money in the first place. So it's not about suppliers putting their costs up necessarily. It's about the budget coming down.
I've been hearing about that. There's been some conversations where budgets are getting slightly smaller, but lead times are also getting smaller. But that's something else. We'll have to pick that up. And
absolutely. I mean, the worst I've ever heard is one of the venues I work with got a request to do an RFP for an event the next day.
I thought I had a conversation with a Portuguese company, and they were telling me how they do amazing things. And they were saying how tight it's become with 2 week lead times. They thought that was tough. Next day.
Yeah, we've we've had a supplier client of ours who's been on the same thing. They were waiting for a decision on quite a sizable supply project, and they were in the same situation. The weekend was looming when the service and product was required on site, and it was getting to the, well, we're going to have to prep and ship this tomorrow morning to get there in time for your deadline, which is the following day. And at that evening, at 8 p.m. the evening before, they still hadn't made a decision whether they did or didn't want the product on site. And that's mad, because no supplier can work like that. And I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to hear that it's somebody else. We just thought it was a bit of an aberration, a real outlier. But it's interesting to hear that other people are feeling the same. And I know when Caroline was asking for her, one of her shout outs to the PRs and industry saying, right, this is what's coming out to going to Standout magazine. This is the feature I'm looking at. Please don't say lead times. We all know. So you kind of think, actually, if Caroline's having to tell us not to go on about lead times must be an issue because everybody's going on about it. And if they're being collapsed again, it's how do you retain staff for those points? How do you know that you need your trucks ready to go and load to take stuff onto site? And it's
something we'll pick up in the future, I think. Anyway, I just want to take this opportunity to follow up a few stories that we've mentioned in the past, and also a worthy mention. Worthy mention would be Speaker Stacks. They've put out top public speaking anxiety tips to boost confidence.
I think that my personal opinion is not everyone's cut out for public speaking, but there's a lot you can do to actually help yourself acknowledge that you're not that good, and actually to get some training and go through a proper training is a really good thing to do.
That actually touches on a much broader subject of speakers who are asked to travel to an event to speak. It may be in a different country, and they are sold on the idea. Well, they try to sell the idea that, oh, you'll get attention. Oh, you're going to be so fabulous. Just think of the connections you're going to make. Oh, yeah, that's true. But we're not going to pay for your accommodation, and we're not going to pay for anything else. That's it. You just do it off your own back. But think of the opportunities. Yeah, that's not going to work.
I think it's a double-edged sword in that, for me and Paul, placing clients to speak is part of the PR. Just like writing articles for the press, you could argue, well, hang on, I'm writing that article for free for that publication for the exposure. Oh, exposure doesn't pay the bills. Speaking doesn't pay the bills, but it depends why you're doing it. If you're doing it as part of a PR campaign and you are speaking, you are getting yourself out there as an expert on a particular topic, that will then lead to new business. And it's part of that PR campaign.
It comes down to intent. If you want to become a known speaker and get paid for your ability to speak on subjects, then that's one side of things. But as you say, if it's part of a PR campaign to get someone to represent the company or brand to speak on the brand's behalf, then you might actually be okay with doing that. Well, you should be okay for doing it for free because it's part of your PR campaign.
Absolutely.
I want to throw in perhaps a controversial view at this point. I think the job of pitching speakers is to present viable people who have something that is of interest for the audience to listen to. That we should form part of the research program that an event organizer is doing to find out what content and who can speak best on that for their audience, to then turn around at some point and say, we're only going to take speakers who either pay for their speaking slot or are participating in some way in the event commercially. You are restricting and diluting the quality of the content your audience will hear, because, and I have been to an event and seen this, talked to people who've been to sessions and come back and said, oh, how was that on this particular subject? It was a sales pitch for the organization of the speaker. And I caught one of the speakers afterwards and just asked them, and they said, well, we paid to be there, so why can't I sell? And it's when you bring that level of commerciality into it, you lose the value of having the speakers there at all. How do you bring an industry leading thinker who maybe talks on subjects around the world and say, by the way, we've got an audience that we want to hear from you, but you've got to pay us to allow you to go on that platform, and your own travel costs and everything else. There is an element where the return on that investment is straight off the bottom line of whoever that speaker is working for. And if they're a solo practitioner in whatever discipline, that's got to come out of their base earnings. So they have got to be able to project that audience that they're talking to is going to bring them X amount of money, plus enough net margin for them to maintain their business, and additionally cover the cost of the flights and the transport and the accommodation and everything else. And I don't know if organisers, in some organisers who seem to be obsessed with everything's value being pounds, shillings and pence, rather than the content they're providing. And again, who pays? Get me on a soapbox in a minute, but who pays for this? And it's usually either the people who are attending or the people who are there to support it, the sponsors, the exhibitors, whoever might be in the room or may have a presence at a live event. They pay to be there. So they want value from being there. And so they want the right audience in, they want the right audience getting value for it. Well, if all speaker presentations are paid for sales pitches, the audience, you lose the audience, because the audience doesn't want to come and doesn't want to come to be sold at, because they're traveling in to learn, to become educated, to see new supplies, whatever it may be. But what they don't want is to come and sit down and have 25 speaker pitches back to back, because you may as well just go to a meet the buyer event. Really needs some serious thinking.
Absolutely. I think it's quite deceitful, actually, to charge, and I've seen this at an event exactly the same as you, Paul. Well, I have seen people pay to attend an event, so they pay £15-20 to attend a certain session. This was an industry event about quite a long time ago, and then the speaker actually paid to be there as well. And then the speaker sold to those people, and the people came away incredibly disgruntled because they paid to be in that session, to be sold to. And the organisers standing there sort of wringing their hands going, yay, made a lot of money out of the speaker and the delegates.
Yeah.
If a speaker is paying the organisers to stand on stage and speak, how different is that to content you read on the website that's been paid to be there? Are both sponsored content?
Yes.
Yeah, and it should be marked up as such.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I think if you're going to pay to speak, it's the same as paying to be read. You need to have something indicating it. It needs to be held to the same standard.
I think the way that people get round it, though, is you would need, or how you could get round it, is you would need an incredibly amazing content director who is actually policing those presentations, or you need somebody that says, okay, you're, as a supplier, you will pay to chair this session, and then we will get other people in to do the content, do the, impart their expertise, their knowledge, their experience to people. But as the supplier, you are the chairperson. But then is that really good value for money? Just being a chair, you're not really getting anything across. You are just
it's having the right intention. Are you putting a speaker on stage to fill people's minds and inspire them, or are you trying to fill your bank account?
And this is where PRs like me and Paul, just to give us a bit of a shout out, would work with the organizer to actually come up with topics that are actually really useful to. And I think this is where more organisers should work with the PRs in their industry to actually look, the trusted partners, we're trusted, that we're not going to shoehorn a client in. We have got morals, we have got ethics, we do our job, we research.
I've got two PR people I'm talking to, and we've been doing it for a few weeks now, but I am on record saying that PR people are not recognised enough for the efforts they go into and put on. But anyway, checks in the post.
I think there's. I mean, again, how do I say this? With the exception of Jill and I treat everybody else with caution. But there is an element of the organizer has to, beware false prophets who step up and say, "Hey, I'm a run a PR agency or a comms agency, and I can put this person on stage." We've picked up clients in the past who've had senior members of their team pitched for events, put on a panel, and sat there and looked around thinking, "Why am I here? I do this particular discipline. This is my area of knowledge." But some PR scored a win somewhere along the line by sticking me in this panel, and doesn't it look good on their case studies? And the person sitting there looking clueless, thinking, "I don't know what I'm supposed to say because I don't know this part of the industry." And that, to me, is more damaging than anything else. You destroy the reputation of your client. You make them look foolish in front of an audience. I can't think of anything that could be more destructive.
Oh, I totally agree. I sat on a menopause panel a few years ago, and on the panel, it's 3 women and a guy, and I'm thinking, this is brilliant. We've actually got a guy talking about menopause. This is good. I like this. He's obviously had some experience that perhaps his wife or his mother, or he's bringing some personal experience of being a guy in this, or his company's got a menopause policy, something like that. And as the questions flowed, we realized, no. And he actually said, "Oh, yeah, I don't really know much about menopause." Why are you there? It was frustrating.
Yeah, I can imagine that is. Anyway, we're supposed to be doing a quick summary of. Okay, Paul, you've got more thing you want to say. Go on then.
Yeah, no, just one quick one. We're talking about speakers and reputation and things, and I'll just worth a look. Campaign magazine this morning landed in my email. They've just pushed out Bloomberg's corporate reputational study, and they run this on a regular basis. But what then marketers, which I find fascinating as an ex-marketer before drilling down into PR, I find this stuff really interesting. That 79% of market leaders now treat brand and reputation as separate and distinct disciplines, which is a major shift, and it's going to affect strategy, team structures, budgets, everything. Where they're saying brand drives differentiation. How do you look? What differentiates you from competitors? Why should clients choose you? And reputation builds trust. So reputation management, which is what you and I are involved in the business of, Jill, builds the trust in the brand. The differentiation of the brand shows why it's different from other people. So they're two separate disciplines, different budgets. Now, as I say, as a marketer as well as a PR guy, I would say it's quite a scary prospect that you're going to unhitch brand and reputation, because I think the two are inextricably linked. Because you can differentiate your brand, but if your reputation is shot, your brand's dead in the water anyway. And if your brand is differentiated in the incorrectly or not in an appropriate way, then you've got a lot of work to do reputationally to get the brand reputation back where it should be. So I still think the two are symbiotic. You can't split them off completely. You can't have, what are you? Well, I'm the brand manager. What are you? I'm a reputation manager, and two of them go off in different departments, do their own thing.
They need to dovetail together, really, don't
Yeah.
they? Just like PR, marketing, new business, or with the business, the company strategy need to all dovetail together. I like the fact I'm waving my arms around on a recording.
That's really well done. Yes.
But it's a great
Paul trying to say hello everybody and waving. Yeah, I did that in the previous episode.
Yeah, I've been sitting on my hands all the time for this one. But I would. It's campaignlive.co.uk, and the article's in there. And if you look for Bloomberg's corporate reputation study, go have a look at it. But I'm sure the three of us will have a dig into it over the week and maybe do a quick follow up next week. But it's
that'd be cool.
It's certainly an interesting piece to look at.
There's two other items I want to briefly mention. Andrew Roby, a couple of weeks ago, did a post on LinkedIn about Fire Festival, Tomorrowland, the Tomorrowland Fire. We mentioned that in a previous episode, and he's gone into some detail about what happened and how they dealt with it. Now, a lot of people have been going, "Oh, didn't they do brilliantly? Didn't they respond well?" If you read through the post, you'll go, well, of course they did, because they planned for that eventuality. They had built the stage, they involved all, I hate using the American word stakeholders, but all the people who needed to know and be part of the plan, not just to make it successful, but also what to do when something horrible goes wrong, like a stage fire. So what started as a pyro test that caused a few sparks to go out and basically set light to some of the stage set. They already had a plan B. They already had built into their plan exactly what to do, who to talk to, how to cope with it, who needs to do what. So as impressive as their recovery was, when you see what they've actually planned for and how they did it, it's really is a case of, well, of course they coped.
Yeah, because they'd planned for the worst. You know,
Absolutely, yeah.
As Paul will always talk about, they had a disaster recovery plan in place.
Yeah.
And all it was, yep, let's
Well,
work
look,
through that then.
Again, when you read through it, you'll see that they even Metallica's M72 World Tour crew, whether they were part of the conversation or not, the fact that they came and helped. So it was really is a case of everybody came together knowing what to do, not sort of following rules of must do this, must do that, who to talk to, what equipment needs to be sorted out. It was an amazing piece of planning.
It's and the article's really good. It's not a long article on LinkedIn. It's well worth a quick look because, as you say, Bob, it highlights all the things you should do. And the lovely part about it was it integrated their comms team in as well, so the messaging got out to people, which is the bit that kind of would fit in Jill and I's bailiwick. The comms happened, but the thing that seemed clearest to me about this, they'd gamed this. It had all of the hallmarks of here's our contingency plan, let's test it. Even if it was only a tabletop test, they'd run through it to say where are the gaps, where are the holes, because it ran beautifully. A great exercise, and this guy's summation of it is spot on, absolutely.
Yeah.
And also shows that when things go wrong, you do need some sort of reputation management, to make sure you're speaking with clarity and some transparency. But these guys, because of the plan and how they dealt with it and communicated during the whole thing, not a lot of reputation management probably did need to be done, which I thought was impressive.
Yeah. I think you need the plan to communicate so that people just not turn up, basically. And that whole thing of being calm, that calm message going out saying, yes, this has happened, but the doors are opened, we're sorting it, no one's got hurt, the doors are still open.
But doesn't it sort of, wouldn't you have much more confidence in the organisers when they've got that detailed plan and actually enacted the plan perfectly, correctly, and saved the day and the show went on anyway? So if they were event planners, not just festival planners, but these are the kind of people you go, well, you did brilliant in that disaster.
Oh, absolutely. It's like with anything, isn't it? It's not the measure of a company, measure of an event isn't when things go right, it's when things go wrong and how you actually recover from that. So I thought they did really, really well. I think there'll be hopefully a lot of it's a great case study of how to do something, how to actually recover. Yeah.
And another follow-up, which is also in itself a worthy mention. Margaret Reeves at RevTech has shared an article on Exhibition News as a follow-up to what's now become that infamous article. We've already talked about it, so I'm not going to go diving into it, but brownie points to Exhibition News for actually sharing it. They didn't have to. They could have just pretended nothing happened or just waited for everything to calm down. But I think they've given a supplier a chance to talk.
Absolutely. And I think that's a very fair, I think it's great that the discussion has been opened up, that Margaret wanted to do something that was calm, that was not inflammatory, that wasn't fueling the fire. She wanted to do something calm and actually look forwards rather than looking back and regurgitating what had already been there. And I think that's how we need to move on as an industry and open the dialogue and talk.
Yes, and with that in mind, we're going to move on to, I think that's been covered. So, Paul, I've got a feeling that the things that you wanted to talk about, we may have actually already talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, we covered off the paid speaking opportunities, and listening to the conversation, I think my comment in our notes that we share and discuss when we're looking at content for this, I think the last sentence of my point: should these carry a paid for content warning? Yes,
they should.
Absolutely, they should. There is no difference to this being advertorial or it being a paid for feature in a publication. And I think honesty for the audience and for their also for the integrity of the organizer and the show, whatever event it may be. If this is a paid for slot, tell people it's a paid for slot, and then let them know they're probably going to get sold to. As they might decide the information value of the content is great enough for me to sit through a sales pitch, but they might turn around and say, no, I came for knowledge share and I came to increase my knowledge and understanding of a subject, rather than.
That's going to be the problem, that when people have paid £2.5 grand, £5 grand to occupy a stage, if you've paid that amount of money, you're going to go, well, how am I going to get a return on that? Oh no, let's see how many services that we provide as a company, how many of those can I pitch to the audience? So it's like an in-person webinar, or it's like when you get invited down to a local hotel where they've got a big room where they're going to tell you about this amazing property in Spain that you need to go and invest in.
Timeshare.
Timeshare. There we go. It's timeshare opportunity. The thing is, when you're paying to go on stage and you're doing all this, is it really that different from being pitched to timeshare? I mean,
a quick plug for a client of ours that's been mentioned already, Speaker Stacks. And not by me, I hasten to add. I didn't mention them first. But the point there is that allows the speakers to engage with the audience in the speaker session to be able to collect data from them. So they actually use QR code data. They request more information from the speaker. That kind of tool is one that may swing the balance of this debate, because if you go on there and you present engaging, thought-provoking, intellectually stimulating content, people will want to engage with you as a speaker. Therefore, if you've got a mechanism by which they can commute, they can say, yes, send me whatever it is you've got after this, or send me the slide deck or whatever it may be. You have a two-way communication. So when you're talking about what's the ROI, you don't have to go over there and say, buy my widget, it's the most fantastic widget in the world. You go out there and talk to people about widgets and what they do, generally per se, or it might be something on a different subject. But if the people buy into you as a speaker, they will engage that way. So there may be some way of doing that, but again, I still think there needs to be something that says we've invited this speaker because they're the best in the business at talking about this subject, compared to this guy's stumped up more than anybody else, so we've given him a slot on a stage.
Yeah, totally agree.
Going to confuse things totally, because in my limited experience in the industry, I've been to trade shows, and there's quite often stages set up for you do get people pitching their company and their services, and attending people want to find out more. But there's also the educational stage. And if that person is on the stage, on the educational stage, and they're talking, does the fact that that person has paid a small fortune to stand there change in any way what they're saying?
I think it depends on who they're working with. And if a client of mine said, right, the only way we've identified, together we have identified that the audience at this event is absolutely our A-list, we really want to get in front of them, and the only way we can do that is to pay. to be there. I would say, right, well, let's make it worth it. We don't do a sales pitch because that's just going to piss them off, basically. We put together a really good content, thought leadership style piece. And that's where I think that external perhaps help would help.
But the moment you gate it on either side, whether the attendees pay to watch what's happening on the stage or the person on the stage has to pay, when you gate it, then you're not, if you're looking to make change, if you're looking to improve the industry, if you're trying to instill new and exciting ideas, the moment you put money around that, whether it's for the person to speak or it's the audience having to do, you're then restricting it, you're gating it. And for those who want to make change but just don't have the budget to attend, you're reducing your audience, you're restricting the content. And if you're not transparent about it, then I think you're misleading.
Yeah,
and it should be marked as so.
You're definitely restricting, aren't you? You are then going out saying the only people that are worthy to talk are the ones, as Paul said, the ones that can stump up the money. And it doesn't always follow like that. But I think it could work if you've got the combination of a client that's got the money and that's also got the integrity, or a third party that they're working with, like a PR or even an internal PR, but somebody knows that this needs to be done with integrity and it's not a sales pitch. It could work, but there's loads of caveats.
One last thing, Paul.
Yeah, what the thought occurred. If you're paying to go and do something and you're going to go and tell people about a product, you get a stage, you put a point on a stage, you've got a group of people who come and sit down and they listen. You spent the money on the stage. My gut feel is you would be better off investing in having a stand at the show, because more people will walk past your stand and present an opportunity for more in-depth interactions than you'll get if you stand on the stage. And going back to the millennium, and the Millennium Bug. We worked with a client who had a Millennium Bug fix, a BIOS chip fix. And what we did there was they'd only got a like 6x3 stand, tiny, but we had the stand built as a small presentation theatre. And we invited everybody and anyone we could think of that was in our target market through PR, through direct marketing, through everything. But obviously social media wasn't around then. To come and book a slot in a session. And we filled this little 12-person auditorium up every hour on the hour for a talk from a hardware technician talking about what the BIOS chip failure might mean and what the remedy was. And it was very clearly our stand with our branding on, talking about our solution. But we filled it with people and we got tons of inquiries at the back of it, because we'd used our stand to deliver a very much of a presentation on one particular issue, on one particular subject. And in terms of cost effectiveness, if we'd have taken one of the stand as speaker slots, we'd probably have got, I don't know, 20, 30 people in on 1 hour slot during the day.
What makes a difference, as I say, to finish this up, what makes a difference is the fact that you can stand on stage and talk to a bunch of people. But it doesn't beat the face-to-face conversation that you can have around an exhibition stand and have that one-to-one conversation or one-to-many conversation.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
it's horses for courses, though.
but it depends on your intent, obviously.
Yeah, and your intent.
But the thing is, if you're going to have to pay on stage, you're going to have to juggle whether it's you pay extra to have an exhibit stand or you risk paying that $5,000 to be on stage and talking to a bunch of people who are finding the seats incredibly uncomfortable. The headphones they're wearing is making their ears hurt. You've got to judge it for yourself. Anyway, we should bring that to an end, because that is something I know we could talk about.
We could.
For another hour or so. And obviously, we've got listeners with headphones on who have probably got their ears hurting right now. So we better finish up for this episode. So thank you both again for
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Paul.
Here.
Always good fun.
It is. It always is. And so, yeah, that's it for this episode. Thank you for listening. And thank you to you two.
Same time next week.
Thanks. Go and read your Bloomberg article now. Off you go.
Okay, we can do that.
Bye, guys.
And cut.
This Week in Events is a production for the EPN Journal podcast. A huge thanks to our patrons, partners and industry friends for helping to make this possible. Details of how you can be a patron are in the show notes and on the EPN Journal website. Thanks for listening.